The next category is the bokeh properties or lens properties, whatever you want to call them. If we open them here, we can see three effects are available. Here we have the depth of field. Just set that. Let's reset our starting value of 70%. 50 or 70% is always a good value for finding out what the effect actually does. Straight away we can see that a camera bokeh has appeared at the back, a soft bokeh, which we can also bring to the front, for instance, or move it back again. We can choose the shape of the bokeh in our selection area, maybe pentagonal. And if I turn up the glow effect for the bokeh, we can now clearly see these pentagons that have appeared everywhere. If I turn off the glow effect completely, that's a very soft bokeh. But a bit of glow just makes it look nicer. Of course, we can also really turn up the intensity. This is the maximum bokeh, extremely blurry at the back. And as we move towards the front, it gets less and less blurry. And this effect comes in a second variant called tilt shift blur. We know it from processing miniature images. It's usually done on semi-oblique shots from above to create the effect of a miniature world. That's what this effect is made for. You set the blur here. Let's set it to the maximum for now, just like the general bokeh blur, to the front, middle, or back. Let's say I want a lot of blurring at the front. When I move the sharp area to the back, now the front is very blurred, the middle is a little blurred, the back of the image is sharp, and the very back is slightly blurred. That's the difference in this tilt shift blur. If we set it in the middle, the front and back are blurred, and that creates exactly this tilt shift effect. I'd still enhance it with a bit of color saturation. That makes it a look bit better. And the third effect we have here is the focal distance. Let's turn that up and we can instantly see what happens. This image is zoomed towards us in perspective when we increase the focal distance, or compressed when we reduce the focal distance. And if we increase the focal distance a little, we can see how the image comes towards us. So the object comes towards us and the rear area moves away from us. Then we can choose the center point for this focal distance, or for this spatial distortion. And if I click in a circle here, we can see how that tilts the image. So we could tilt the image down a little. To do that, we have to move the center point up and then increase the focal distance a lot. And now we've spatially adjusted the image, and if we want, we can then bend it a little to the left. This kind of thing in programming is called a parallaxing effect, which is calculated through this depth map, if anyone wants to find out more about it. And then we have other special effects. Special effects are effects that can't be assigned to a specific category. At the top here we have haze and fog correction, which correctly is applied more towards the back of the image. So everything far away from us, because haze and fog are created from the point from which we're looking or taking a picture. The further back we go, the more diffusion we have in the image. And then we can use the depth control here to say how far forward we want this correction to begin. So this is a spatially correct haze and fog correction. The effect underneath it is almost the opposite. This is the add blue effect. If we click it, we can see how it becomes more blue towards the back. This is a similar effect to underwater photography. First the red light in the air is absorbed, then the green and the blue is retained. And the further away something is from us, the bluer it appears, depending on how much moisture is in the air. So if you have a very clear image and want to artistically enhance it with a blue effect, this is just the effect for you. Then we have a color gradient. Let's set it to 100% for now, and we can give this color gradient a color at the front, red for example, and a color at the back. Let's choose green. And of course we can also reduce the intensity a little if we want to. It's just an artistic effect. Then we have the classic deep fog. I'll turn this one right up, intensity to 100%. This means that the fog is faded in starting from a depth of 70% of the image. And if we now move that closer to the front, the fog comes further and further forward. And we can actually slowly make the image completely disappear in the fog. We can also choose a color for the fog. I tend to use lighter colors when it comes to real fog simulations. And if we want to create a more artistic effect, we can also use a dark fog color that can give it a slightly spooky look. You can play around with all this as well. The aura is a light effect that we can set to the front or back. Let's set it to the front. There's also the darken slider, which ensures that the light does not just make the image brighter, but the brightness is maintained and a soft glow or an aura is calculated around the relevant object. Then we have the air shimmer. Let's change the picture again for this one. Let's go back to the horses we had in the first video and zoom in a bit so we can see it a little better. Air flicker is the turbulence in the air that refracts the light and causes objects to bend. We can add that into pictures here. You can see how the back is now bent. The front area, the horses aren't affected, only the back area. You choose where you want this distortion to begin, so how far forward, using the depth control. If we want to set it right at the front, the horses will also be affected. Of course, that doesn't make much sense. So let's go back a bit. And we can then use the whirl to set the level of distortion. If we now combine that with a fog, with a brownish hue, then we get a bit of a desert look. It feels like there's a bit of sand in the air. Of course, we're not making a desert out of the picture, but we do create a bit of a visual effect. And if we now go to the general filters and add in a little more warmth, then that strengthens that impression a bit more. And the last effect at the very bottom is a special effect. It's an anaglyph view. Anaglyph here means a 3D view, but you'll need 3D glasses for it. To show you what these glasses look like, I've added them as a watermark here. Some of you may still remember them. These are the red cyan glasses. The left one is red and the right one is turquoise or greeny blue. And if you have a pair of these glasses and set this effect, you can now view the photo in 3D, so with spatial depth. Let's switch off the watermark module again. And the depth control lets us choose whether to show the image going into the monitor as it is now, or whether the image should be coming out of the monitor. This is the front area. And you can then actually look at all your photos again in 3D with spatial depth. So hopefully you were able to get something from that video. As you can see, there's a lot you can do, and this is really important. You can combine everything with everything else. And all that's left to say is have fun trying it out, and I hope you enjoy using the program.